Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, your instructor for ANI 258, and this is Module 1, and we're prototyping our level. So the first thing I want to do is kind of make you aware that Unreal uses a different axes system. So Z is up and Y is where the Z used to be, facing you. So you can see that we've got X, or Z is up, X is where it's supposed to be, and so it's flipped. The Y and Z have been flipped. So what you want to do is just be aware of that when you're working and you're typing in transforms to move objects and stuff like that. So with that said, the next thing I'm going to do is show you where AutoSave is, and you can turn it off or on, leave it on if you want. It's really your preference. I want to turn it off. So under loading and saving, under the editor preferences, you can turn it's on by default. I turned mine off. But what you can do is, if you do have it turned on, then you can tell it how frequent you want it to save, auto-save for you, every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, whatever you type in there. And then how long of a warning do you want before that it actually saves. So I end up turning it off because, let me give you a reason why. Because when you're building your lighting and your geometry and you have a large level, it actually will, your level will actually stop, and it's impossible to get it unlocked. So it kind of locks up on you. Basically it just crashes on you, and that's a problem, and you can lose everything. So autosave, to me, for some of you that are starting out, it's a godsend. If you're starting out, you're new to it and you're not doing a whole lot. But as we move forward into our modules, I would highly recommend turning that off. This scene is going to be fairly small, so I'm not really too worried about it if you have it on. But eventually, when we get into modules where you're going to be doing a lot and your scenes are getting heavier and heavier, and when you actually do lighting and you render your lighting and your geometry, or bake your maps that way, that's how actually the engine works, is that it will actually interrupt it and lock everything up. So just be aware of that. Okay, so I turn that off, just my personal preference. So I'm going to turn that off. You can keep it on if you'd like. And that's just how I worked. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to get started. Everything looks good. So let's go ahead and open up our map. Just have this off to the side, or maybe print this out, or whatever you want to do with it. But we need to have this open so we can keep reminding ourselves what the dimensions are and looking at the dimensions. We also need to convert some stuff. So basically, I'm going to have you guys convert your own as we move forward. I've converted everything myself right now to do the tutorial, but when I give you something like this again, or you create your own, you're going to need to have to convert it yourself. So how do you do that? So the the Unreal units here is 1 UU, which is Unreal unit, is equal to 1 centimeter. Okay. And then if 1 foot equals 30.848 centimeters, so 30.48 equals 1 foot centimeters, then 115 feet would equal 3,505.20 centimeters. So we can round that off to 3,505. So let's just go ahead and round up or down, and we're going to round down on that one, so 3,505. So how do we get that? So it's 115 feet, and then you times it by 30.48. Okay, so how many centimeters are in a foot? So you times that, and that's where I come up with the 3,505.02. So let's go ahead, and I've also got the 60 feet. So we're going to do the ground plane first. Okay, so it's 115 by 60. What is 60? 60 times 30.48 is equal to 1828.8. So we'll round that up to 1829. Okay, with that said, those are the two numbers we're going to work with. Alright, so how do we get started? Well, we want to go into geometry. Okay, I know you're new to this. So under geometry, and a lot of students forget and they use these to build with, and you'll find out real quick that it doesn't really work. Or if you get really far into it, you'll be like, oh, I messed up. Don't use the ones under basic. Please use the geometry. These are true BSPs, binary space partitions, and so we're going to drag and drop that. So you're going to click on that box, you're going to left mouse button click on it and drag it in. You're just basically dragging it in. Let me try it again. Left mouse button, hold it, drag it in. There we go. So that's how you drag things in, and you can just move it around. Now I know you've watched a video on how to move things around and use your viewports and all that stuff. So anyway, so with that said, now what we want to do is we want to get those translate values in as far as the scale, right? We want to scale this out. So in here, on that scale, just size it. I guess same thing, scale, size. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and type in those numbers. So if we know if we know Z is up, and then Y is Z, right? They flipped them over. So we need to type in 3,505. So 3,505, enter. There we go. There's our length. And then our width is X, which hasn't changed, and that's 1829, right? That's what we decided. That's what we calculated, 1829. And hit enter. There we go. So now, because it's the ground, I'm not really too worried about thickness, but I'm just going to go ahead and type in something smaller. So we're going to type in something that's a foot. So it's 30. Basically, it's 30.48. Let's just round it off, and let's hit 30 and enter. And so that there's our playing field right there. All right. So where do we set from the top view on this? Again, you can hold your Alt key and just kind of, it works just like Maya, the Alt key, and you can zoom out and in. And so what I want to do with this is I want to center it. So I'm going to click on this guy right here. Now you can also go in here to the right hand corner, okay, all right, and click on these little boxes in the upper right hand corner and go into that viewport if you want to. Okay, so let's go to, and you can also go in here and just go to the top view. A lot of times I'll do that. And if you hit the F key, it'll frame your object. So let's go ahead and put that in the center, and it's set pretty low as far as the grid snapping, right? So with a big object like this, let's do 100. And you can see now it's snapping. You can see it's snapping a little bit better than it was. And so I'm going to snap that, put that in the center. Now I want to get pretty accurate with this and do it right the first time. I'm going to not get rid of it, but just move that over. And so here is my here's my object. I'm not sure what that is. What's that? Okay, let's go back into here. And do I have two of those? Sometimes that happen. Yeah, I got two of them for some reason. Alright, so let's go back to the top view and just get this centered properly. And I'm going to go in here and turn it down now to a higher level. And let's get that centered exactly. There we go. So that's centered that way from the top view. Let's center it from the left hand side. Alright, so the thing is I can't really center it all the way down here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to put it just below my first person character. Okay, let's go ahead and select that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to something like 50 and just kind of snap that down right to the bottom of your character. Okay, that works out pretty good. So now we know that's our ground plane, so whenever we stack anything we can use the left hand viewport to see it. Alright, so I also sent you guys in the module I've got the UE4 editor hotkey cheat sheet, and on the right bottom hand corner are camera shortcuts. Okay, so if I click on Alt G, that'll bring me back to perspective. So Alt G. Okay, Alt H will take you to the front side view, and Alt J will take you to the top view. So again, Alt G, perspective, Alt H is the front view, Alt J is the top view. So let's go ahead and go back in perspective and take a look at what we got. Again, you can use whatever you're comfortable with. A lot of times you'll see me go back to this, but again, it says right up here what you need to select. So you can do right, Alt Shift K. So you guys can see the hotkeys for that as well. Alright, so now that we've got this set up, the ground plane set up, now we need to work on the walls. So if we look at the walls, they're the same structure, okay, until we get into the front. So we need 60 feet by 115 feet, again, using our, this is why it's really important to have some kind of a blueprint or floor plan of your level. So usually you start with a top-down view, and a lot of artists like to draw perspective views of their scene, and that's cool too. But most of the time I'm just going to ask for a top-down view, and that's basically what I need. Alright, so I'm going to move that off to the side, and you guys have yours in front of you. So 115 feet across, so we need another cube in here, another box. I'm not too worried about where it's sitting, although I'm going to give you a hotkey. So a hotkey for it to actually hit the bottom of the ground is end. So that is really nice to know. So if you're using objects and you want to place them, it's not 100% accurate, but it's very, very close. It's really close with BSPs, but it becomes a little irregular with other objects if you import them in. So beware of that. So hit the end key, and that'll place it on the ground plane. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go scroll down, and with this one we're going to go into the next one is 115. So we know we need the length of this, so we're going to have a fence or wall around the perimeter. So we're going to do 3,505. 3,505 in the Y. Okay, there we go. And then we want it to be, the thickness to be 1 foot. So we are going to do 30 in the X. And for the height, what do we want for the height? I think we want a 6-foot wall, so that is 182.88, so 183. So 183. Okay, here we go. And so now let's lift it up like that, and then hit the end key. And now we need to go to the top view. So I'm going to do Alt J and move it into place. There we go. And that should snap really nicely on there if you have it set up to 50. Okay? So that should snap up really nice. So I'm going to do, now what I'm going to do is I want to copy this over to the other side. So how do you do that? Well, with that selected, then hold the Alt key and then move that a little arrow, and then let go of the Alt key, and then you can move that, and that duplicates. It gets you have to get used to duplicating that way. It's really strange. But anyway, so if I zoom in, you can see we're right on that line. So that looks good so far. So what do we got so far? Alt G, and this is what we have so far. Hold the Alt key down and just kind of left mouse button, kind of rotate around. So that's great. So now we need to do the back wall, which is 60. So we got to remember that we've got 30 here, and we've got 183 here, I believe. That's what yeah, 183, yep. So what we want to do is we want to take those numbers, okay, we're going to drop another one in here. We could either duplicate this, which is easy to do, hold the Alt key and just move it over, and we could hit the space bar and just rotate it like this, okay. And then we could go in here and then change the size this way. So we have 305, and all we need for 60 is 1828.80, so we had 1829. So 1829 on that. Okay, hit enter. And there we go. So now I'm going to go to the top view, so Control J again, and we're going to hit the space bar. Sometimes it's not clicking on it right. So I'm going to click on that. Come on, there we go. And sometimes it gets stuck. Hit the space bar and move it. You can also click on these icons up here. If you get stuck or something's not working right, just go ahead and force it. Do the manual icons, just click on the icons up here. I like using the space bar, it's faster, but sometimes it does get stuck. And go ahead and move this down. Okay. Let's zoom in a little bit. Sometimes you got to zoom in a little bit. And you can see that it's not really snapping properly. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this centered. At least it's centering, but it's not snapping properly. So we're going to zoom in a little bit closer and select it. And what we want to do is we want to match that up. So we need to turn that down to maybe 5 and see if that'll do it. Nope, it won't. So let's go back all the way down to 1 and get that lined up. Okay, right. So that's about as close as we're going to get with that. Okay. So let's go ahead and zoom back out again. That's okay. And one of the things we may want to do, and I'm going to show you how to fix this, is that we could scale that down. We really don't want to have two pieces of geometry intersecting each other because they're occupying the same space. Some of the faces are. So what I want to do is, just like Maya, we don't want that happening because you'll have textures fighting each other, is we need to move these points back. So I'm kind of in the corner here on the top view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this guy up here, this icon, Geometry Editing. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, and this gets me in geometry mode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to marquee select with my left mouse button, hold it down. You can do that. Marquee select it. And you can zoom in, and with one selected, you can just kind of move that back. Okay, and it's okay if it intersects that much. It's not a big deal. Having that much intersect is not too bad. Let's go back to the other side and do the same exact thing. So just marquee select with your left mouse button held down, and then just move that back like that. Okay. What you don't want to see is a gap. So this is okay having it overlap a little bit, but this is not okay. So if you have a choice between overlapping a little bit and pulling it away a little bit, what happens is that you can definitely see that crack and light will get through. Okay. So you always want to overlap just a little bit or have it tight within itself. Okay, so overlapping just a teeny bit is not going to hurt anything. Overlapping a lot could be a problem with textures fighting each other. Alright, so with that selected, let's go ahead and go to the front view, or excuse me, perspective view, and let's get out of geometry editing. So with geometry editing, what I want to do now is I want to click back on to the place. Okay, this place mode, we got place. And so what we want to do is we want to hold, hit the space bar until we get to the move tool and hold the alt key down, and then go ahead and duplicate that one down to the back. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to figure out, well, we need 20 feet now. Let's do some calculating there. 20 feet would be 609.6, so let's kind of round that off to 610. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate around to the back here. And we want this to be 610. So let's go ahead and scroll down under the details of this object. And this will be 610. So I'm going to type in 610. There we go. And let's go ahead and move that over. Now I want to get that back to something higher to see if it'll snap right. And let's go to the top view again. Okay. See where we're at here. I'm going to hit the F key to focus on that. Okay, there we go. So there is our BSP, and it's snapping too high, so we're going to go a little bit lower with the number and get that in there. Okay. Now it's 20 feet from the corner. Okay, so that can kind of play a little bit in. So when you are measuring precisely, you've got to get it set up first. Okay, and then you can go into geometry editing here and select these guys and then pull these guys back like this. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit more, see where we're at with that. And that looks like it's right on the money. I'm going to go in and overlap a little bit just to make sure. And so there is our first wall. Let's go back into place, and let's go ahead and hold the Alt key down and move this over to the side. Okay. Again, let's go ahead and get the dimensions correct on this. So with this one, the dimensions are 35 feet. You can see over here, 35 feet there. So let's go 35 feet, and what is that? That's 1066, so 1067. Because we have 1066.8, and we're going to go to the next, the higher. So let's go ahead and do 1067. There we go. And we want that to intersect. Okay, like that. And get as close as you can. And then you can go to geometry editing, or marquee select it, and move that back. There we go. Alright, so you're going to have to do a lot of zooming in and out. And there we go. So now we've got, let's go to Alt G and see it prospectively, and that looks pretty good. Now the only thing is that I can say is that some of these are not on the same plane, so we need to make sure that's all taken care of. Okay, so that's the next thing we'll do, and then we'll go to part 3. So let's go ahead and go to this side view, Alt H, and let's make sure everything's on the proper. Let's make sure that wall is actually set. So I'm going to marquee select that and make sure we're not in geometry mode, so in placement mode. And let's select these, and let's go ahead and move those up. So I have to be careful what I'm selecting. So I'm going to go ahead, select those, if it will let me select them. There we go. And we want to move that up. So get as close as you can, and then go ahead and move that up until it's on the top of the ground plane. So I double check that. I'm also going to do the same thing for the rest of these guys. Make sure that they are right on top of the ground plane. Okay, it's really important. And that one looks good. That one looks good. Okay. This one does not look good, so I'll go ahead and move that up. So I'm just making sure everything is level now. And that looks pretty good. Go back to perspective, Alt G. There we go. That looks pretty good. So it's a good time to save if you haven't saved for a while. So File, Save Current As, and we'll just put a 3 on the end and save it. There we go. Let it save. Okay, so there is our ground plane with our, let's go ahead and click on that and hit the F key. And don't forget to hold the Alt key down with your left mouse button to rotate around. So now that you've got that done, you got it saved, let's go ahead and we're running out of time, so let's go ahead and call it a day with part 2, and let's move on to part 3, and I'll see you there.